Hello, welcome to Get Your Mind On. I'm Laurie Stos. Well, it's nice to have you back. You know, you haven't been the same for the last 3 years. What are those comments about? Have any of you ever heard those? Or any of you ever felt those? I was having a conversation the other day with a gentleman that I had known from another client who is now working in a new role. And we were chatting about his past. And he was part of one of those organizations where things had changed and he thought he was down this career path and it just didn't end up working out because there was so much change in the organization and his role needed to be eliminated. And that was, of course, a tough thing. And now he was in a new environment, a new role, a role that valued him. And he's like, wow, I cannot believe the feeling of what I feel like today in this environment. And I ran into a friend the other day and we were talking about her situation, and she is recently divorced, and she looked very refreshed and renewed. And just in that conversation, she had so much freshness and relief about her. And she was just kind of back to who she used to be. And we were having that conversation about why that is. And she goes, it's just like it's a load off of my shoulders. But I was so scared. And now I'm feeling back to myself again. I'm feeling like I am who I am and not trying to be someone else. So the commonality of both of those stories and those comments are really about our environment and conforming to our environment. And that sometimes we're in situations that we've been in for a long time and it is what it is, right? We've been in those, but we kind of fade into those. We conform. We begin to kind of fold into it is what it is. Now, is that a bad thing? No, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing and we should, rush out instantly. But what we have to do is recognize when that environment is taking us over and we're not being who we are. And when are those times? Why do we do that? Why do we conform? Is it maybe because of a relationship? Maybe someone we're trying to please? Is it because we're being obedient? Maybe obedient to our responsibility that we've committed to a job, we've committed to a role, and we don't want to, release our responsibility of that commitment? Is it possibly because we don't want to fail? And if we would step out of those situations, it would look like I failed and I didn't try hard enough. So those are all feelings and emotions of why we might conform to an environment, and let that environment be more important than being back to who we are or how we feel. So how do we know when we're being enfolded into this situation in these environments? And you may maybe use the word toxic environments. Well, many times there's both a physical reaction and an emotional reaction when these types of things occur. Sometimes our emotions get awry and real strong, or physically we're just feeling exhausted. Also mentally, there's some mental components to that as well. So what are the things to look at? This isn't necessarily when those types of things continue on, the physical and mental and emotional reactions, what happens over time is they just continue to build, and our productivity gets less, our happiness gets less, and things start changing. That's when we really start becoming further and further away from who we really are. Because maybe we haven't been able to stand up for what we're feeling, or maybe we haven't really been doing that job that is the best use of our talents, but we think something's wrong with us when it's really maybe not the right fit. But instantly we go to what's wrong with me. And we just think that it's us, and we continue to conform to the environment. This is really a social psychology piece. When you really think about it, it's sometimes what's socially acceptable and what should I be doing versus being honoring ourselves and being who we are and close to our transparency with ourselves. So what are some of those feelings, or how might we know when it's time to move away from this? First, recognize, do you have anxiety? When you're thinking about whether it's going to work, do you feel like you have to look over your shoulder and be watched for every little thing that you do? Or feel like you're being scrutinized? Do you feel like you can't do anything right? That's not a good environment to work in. If you're having to do that every day, if you feel like you have a new level of anxiety, whether it's real or not, it might be real in your mind. And that might be the same situation for a home situation. If it is not a great relationship or something that you're in, do you have anxiety when it's time to go home? So that's another thing to look at. Second is anger. Do you find yourself reacting to things strongly? Do you find yourself getting angry and short, and just not being able to deal with things in a calm way? So anger would be the second thing. The third thing is really thinking about confidence. When you think about yourself maybe walking into a new job, you might think, oh my gosh, I'm so confident, I'm so excited. And today you find yourself not being confident anymore. You don't think you really do anything well, and you're really wondering, what value do I bring? And you've lost your confidence over time. And the fourth thing to look at is your relationships. Over time, when we get into this environment and further away from who we are, we sometimes go to these relationships that get diminished. Maybe we had more positive or more engaging relationships, and over time, they've kind of dwindled away. Whether that's because of your performance or that's because that you've kind of pulled back because it's not really comfortable for you, or you don't feel like you're being who you are, or you're afraid you're going to get fired, or whatever the situation might be. So those are all different situations to really think about when you're looking at that environment. Now you might be thinking, so if I'm feeling this way that you're describing, does that mean I should just get up and walk away? Well, we know many times that's hard for many of us, but that might not be the answer. The answer may be just to take a step back and recognize and remove yourself from the situation and observe. Get some feedback from some people and ask, hey, you've been a longtime friend of mine. How have I been over the past few years? It's funny because people always tell us that after we're out of the situation. Gosh, it's nice to have you back. We haven't had you for a long time. When you're like, why didn't you tell me that like last year when I was in the heart of the challenging of the situation? But sometimes people won't ask for that feedback unless we ask them. So maybe ask them, remove yourself from the situation, ask some peers, ask some friends who know you, what they've observed. And then make a plan of action. If it is something that you need to resolve with your boss or with a spouse or someone, you need to decide what is that plan of action. And if you're beyond that point, depending on that, the plan of action may be to depart the situation. When we live in those toxic environments and those environments where we start conforming, we just get further and further away from the truth of who we are. So for our positive charge this week, I want you to step back and be an observer. Are there any environments or situations that feel toxic to you, where you've conformed to the environment because of society or because of your need to please someone? And see if that's a healthy situation for you. If you find that it's not, take some time to make a plan of action, to have some discussions with some friends and decide what your next steps are. So when you think about those words, it may not be you. It might be that you're not in this situation, but it might be that you have some friends or peers in this situation. And maybe as a friend or colleague or peer, you need to have this conversation with someone that is getting further and further away from who they are. That would be a great gift to them, to just let them know that you love them and really care and are concerned about them. There's lots of ways that we can make a difference in lives. And think about yourself and be honest to who you are as well as honest to others. The little things that we do make a big difference every day. Thank you for joining us today, and remember to get your mind on.